Welcome to the RugbyBits podcast. We are here after the first week of the Autumn Nation series slash the South Africa versus Japan game, which didn't count the Autumn Nation series and all that sort of stuff. A weekend of internationals. We have wins for England, for South Africa, for New Zealand, and for Scotland. We have a lot to talk about and to cover. We're going to start. All the other teams are going to come into the party as well. So, there's a lot to discuss here. I'm here with Shaun today, and yeah, there's a few matches that we'll discuss today, and just talking points from it. Shaun, yeah, obviously first weekend of the Autumn Nation series slash non-Autumn Nation series with the Springbok game, which is why the Springbok game clashed with the England game, which I think for you, Shaun, when you're sort of trying to watch both at the same time, which is a bit crazy.
Yeah, how's it? Absolutely. Those were like I think the England Australia game was definitely a big one for the weekend for a lot of neutrals to watch as well, just because kind of want to see what's happening. I think most people, maybe some may not admit it, but I think a lot of people know that England are a side that are going to be reasonably competitive moving forward if Borthwick carries on like this, which has been quite a surprise. He still makes some interesting selections and squad selections, but it's working and they seem to be gaining momentum. Add to that Australia have been shit good this season. We're just kind of waiting for them to build it up. But as we mentioned off air, they've just got almost like a first choice 15, and after that they struggle. But yeah, so I watched a bit of that, and then went straight on to the book game. But it was weird because I was watching it, but not watching it. That was the weird thing about playing Japan in the mood that we were in at the time. It wasn't competitive, so you kind of just watching and then really focusing on like any big highlights that happen or tries, etc., and see where the build-up was. But I wasn't like scrutinizing it.
Yeah. So yeah, like I think Shaun has alluded to here, I don't think it'll be a minute by minute discussion we'll do on the Springbok game, unfortunately. But um, let's discuss it though nonetheless. Springboks win 61 points to 7 against Japan. They've scored 9 tries. Curtly Arendse was player of the match with 2 tries. Seemed like there were decent performances from Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu. Cheslin Kolbe looked great at fullback. Zachary Porton looked quite good at tight head as well. Shaun, yeah, are there players that stuck out for you? What are the things that stuck out from that game, and you watching that game?
So Paulton on debut, I was quite impressed with him. It's like I've watched him play, but he looked a lot bigger
Hmm.
when he was playing for the Springboks. Like he's big, and we know that. Listen, everyone grows a foot taller when they're playing for the Springboks. So it was good. If I had to name check, I think the Ox Nche injury is a bit of a hassle. Sasha was brilliant again. He's starting to put these performances together for longer periods of time, which I think a lot of people, myself included, I can't shy away from the fact I was a bit nervous about how he plays the game. Um, yeah, like he's putting more together. He does look balanced. Like when you are shooting from the hip the whole time, it will work for a game or maybe two. But if you're a complete loose cannon shooting from the hip all the time, it doesn't happen for 4 or 5 games in a row. Like there's
Yeah.
a lot more to it. It's more calculated. It's more really spotting it. Like he's definitely got the vision. Everyone knew it, but that step up out of like people were calling it in his schoolboy days, and it took him a while to break into the Stormers setup. It's not like he just cruised in there straight after school. Like he played quite a bit of like Western Province, and he wasn't really in the Stormers until last season, really. But there's still like everything happens a second faster. You have less time. The guys are bigger. The guys can sort of suss you out a little bit sooner in Test rugby, and he's really treating it like every other game we've seen him play. So that was good. It's great having Visa back. Sia Kolisi's doing his thing. Yeah, very interesting. I think I mentioned it last time, but I just want to talk about Cobus Reinach. Like
Hmm.
it's so interesting how for so long he was on the fringes and backup. And then we thought after the 2023 World Cup, like that was it for him. Like he's probably going to be phased out. But here he is, spent 1.5, maybe 2 seasons as almost first choice. Yes, there were some injuries for Williams and stuff, but he's done really well. And I love the way he plays. Like he seems really composed. Like often he picks up the ball and it doesn't look like he's being too intentional about what he does. Like he's kind of just picking out his options, but he's still moving relatively quickly. So he's a good one. But yeah, it was a good all-round performance. No one really had a terrible game.
Yeah. Just looking at Sasha's stats, in terms of kick run pass, he had 11 kicks, 15 carries, and 11 passes. Like it's such a yeah, like it's such so atypical for a South African fly half to have that. You probably think for a South African fly half, it's probably closer to like 50, like 20 kicks and 20 passes and five carries. So he's just, I think it's just so different. The fact that, he has that step inside, he can sort of go by himself. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, maybe we'll talk about a little bit about what we may see on next week against France and whether he plays. I mean, he's shown it against New Zealand. It's not a matter of can he do it. It's just a matter of, like you said, doing it consistently. And he's been building all these performances since yeah, pretty much the latter part of the rugby championship. Yeah, I mean, great to have Kirtley back. I mean, he's fantastic when he's on top form. The try when I think it was the first or the second, yeah, there's the first try that he scored was Cheslin running past and then kicking and chasing and sort of popping it to Arendse. So that was brilliant. Like that was obviously just world class. And yeah, I think it also looked good to have Dialendi and Kriel back. Like it seemed like from what I saw that, they're obviously combining well. They at least had the chance maybe in these round of matches to have first go and then for them to set the standard so that if and when Esterhuizen or Moody come in, they know, okay, this is the standard they need to reach here. But yeah, I mean, that was good. Forwards were fine. I think there's not too many takeaways. I mean, it's also good. Obviously, I think the main purpose of this game was for the Japanese players to get some game time before, the maybe the tougher tests in this November block get sorted out. So obviously the likes of Kwagga and Marks and Diaga and Dialendi were able to at least get a game before, the,
Yeah.
the, the tests in Europe start.
There's someone I want to highlight, and that's Cheslin Kolbe.
Mm.
Everyone, everyone realizes how good he is, but I think the part we're going to miss about Cheslin Kolbe when he leaves is the versatility he brings everywhere.
Yeah.
Because it's not that we're losing an absolute world-class winger. Like we're losing someone that can fill in at 15, that can throw in at the line out, that can play scrum half. Like it doesn't happen in every game, but he is so good that he is kind of brought into any surprise package that the Springboks do somewhere, whether he's jumping in a line out or doing something. You know what I mean? Like that is the one thing that I think about it. Like we are. It's nothing that you can coach into any player. It's just something that comes with a crazy work ethic and ridiculous amounts of skills. So yeah, there's that. Very interesting also how we're going to start deploying under Esterhuizen. I'd love to have had that conversation or be part of that conversation with the Springbok coaches about how they want to deploy him with Delendi there. Like, it's no doubt that Esterhuizen's first choice would definitely be to play 12. But
Yeah.
now we've got him as a 12 and a flank, and maybe it's a case of like, listen, if you are going to go and be involved in more games, this is what we need from you. You need to be a flanker.
Yeah.
Damien Delaney spoke about it, about him playing flank in practice. He's been doing it for a while. So it's clearly something that's happening. There's a hybrid something or other happening. We could definitely see both of them in the midfield in a game at some stage, and then one going to flank somewhere along the line. And the others, I think there's no doubt about the fact that if we are playing in a World Cup final, we're playing in any knockout game that Jesse Kriel's going to play 13.
Yeah.
There is Moody is brilliant, and I'm name checking Moody because he's definitely next in line for now. Like there's no doubt about it. But there is a massive difference between the two. Moody offers more in marginally more in a few places, but I think as a whole, Creel is streets ahead, which is a great position for us to be in. We're not forcing Moody into anything. We can kind of manage any sort of teething problems moving forward. we're in such a very fortunate position that a lot of our players, really talented youngsters that are coming through, are able to be integrated into the team slowly.
Yeah.
And I think that's always the plan. And then you get someone like Sacha who is just tearing down trees. So you're like, cool, we're integrating you, except you're playing so well, we can't not play you more. Um, but he knows that his time will come where he needs to ride the pine or take a game off. And there's no doubt that the players around him are growing because of it.
Yeah, so I guess like you said, the main negative is Ox Nche's injury, and it seems like what he's been ruled out for the rest of the tour. Asnatin has come into the squad. Rassi talked about Thomas du Toit pretty much is now going to be swinging probably more towards loosehead now, so it's going to be him and Gerard Steenkamp at this time because it's Nche that's out, it's Vessels that's out with the suspension. I mean, Kunu's also someone you can also count as like part of that depth chart. So I mean that's a big loss. Like Ox is probably the best in his position in the world. He's right up there in terms of irreplaceable players right now. I think, it's him, it's Marks, Visa, obviously we've talked about before, maybe like a Peter Stephen Kolbe are also up there. Like it's gonna be a big ask. I mean, it's good that Gerard Cup has come back. He had a pretty good cameo off the bench as well. So, it's not gonna be like I don't think that's too much of a dip in quality there. And Thomas du Toit can do a job at loose head. But yeah, I mean, it would be a surprise if the box scrum isn't at least 5 to 10% worse because, Ox Nche is the best proponent there. The fact that he's a bit shorter and stout and like can really get into the tight head, like that's a big sigh of relief that, the likes of Tide Furlong and Dorian Aldegheri don't have to worry about Ox Nche for the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And Steenkamp couldn't have come back at a better time.
Yeah.
It could have been so much worse for us as a South African side. Um, he's pretty handy. We've got Thomas Toy. We've got to get to manage how we use him. I wouldn't be surprised like if we see him on both sides of the scrum somewhere along the line. I know we kind of tried that out with a couple of props previously where someone comes off the bench and like loose head and then shifts over to tight head later in the same game. So yeah, I'm just listen. It's serious enough that Ox is going to miss out in November, but it's not like shit. He's out for 12 months, so there's that. So I'm quite happy, and not that it's a break. Injuries are not holidays for players
Yeah.
by no means. Like there's quite a lot of work still to be done. So I'm sure Ox needs a break. So hopefully he gets one thrown in between rehab.
Yeah. I wonder now what happens with the bench. So what happens on tight head if Thomas du Toit is probably playing loose head this week? Does that mean that Vocalo starts and then between Porthen and Tlabakanya on the bench, maybe the younger one starts and then Vocalo can obviously always play 40, 50 minutes if needed. That I think will be an interesting thing to navigate, I think, for the coaching staff. Maybe I mean, we were talking about it before. As record, it's a Monday. We were told that the Springboks would announce their squad today for Saturday against France. That has been moved back to Thursday. So maybe that's one of the questions that the Springbok coaching staff are pondering right now.
Are you starting Thomas du Toit?
It's lucid or at tight head? That's the question.
At Lucid?
I,
Uh,
I
yeah,
think so, I guess.
it'll be risky, but you could start. Here's your swing, so you probably don't want to start him at tight head and then move him to loose head. But we have to have a loose head on the bench anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd maybe start him at loose head, start Volko at tight head. Steenekamp can come off, and then you can swing Thomas to tight head for a while, and then Porthen can come on later.
Maybe.
Like,
Yeah. I don't think that's bad.
imagine facing as a tight head prop. You have the prospect of facing Thomas du Toit, Volkolo, and Zachary Porthen in one game.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that'll be interesting, even for the French team. Well, how do they navigate that? Do they just basically wait until Dutoit's off the field and then basically whoever their bench loose head is? Because I mean, France also have a few. I mean, I don't know if they've announced their squad for this week, but Cyril Bae wasn't in the squad, and I mean, Antonio's not there, Mavaka isn't there, so they're not at their full strength themselves at front row. So I think they'll have probably someone like Montagne or Edericho or players that don't have a lot of test caps. So do you sort of wait until Porthen comes on and then you go, okay, your rookie can also come on as well. So it's like rookie versus rookie rather than, you know, Montagne or someone comes on and still Thomas du Toit that you're scrumming against. So maybe Aldegheri now has to scrum longer. So yeah, I think there's ways of playing around. Look, Thomas du Toit can play 80 minutes. He's done that for Bath many times. And if I'm not mistaken, like was it the final last year that he went to both props because Obana got sunburned or red carded earlier. So I don't know if he can do 80 minutes in Paris against Les Bleus, but I think he can do 60, 65 pretty well. So I think that's at least a tactic that the Springboks can have in their pocket. So yeah, I think maybe that might be the solution.
The the problem the problem with playing 80 minutes as a prop or anyone in the front row, or the tight five for that matter, against France is, as you've mentioned, they've got big, heavy bodies. Like their
Yeah, they have their
plan,
own bomb squad.
yeah, their plan is to send big boys down your channel and tire you out, like constantly make you make decisions, be in the right place, and so that is the issue. But I would not love anything better than Thomas du Toit to play 80 minutes, scrum on both sides of the scrum and get man of the match. Like, just bring it on. Bring it
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, France, especially in the Six Nations, we saw like they love a rolling ball and they are happy to keep it there. They want to sap you off your legs. So, yeah, I guess that's the risk. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how both teams compile their benches because these are probably the two best proponents of a 7-1. Do they both go 7-1? Does someone sort of do the rebel thing and then go 5-3 for this game? So yeah, I think I mean, by the time we get to Thursday, I think there'll be a lot to speak about in terms of selection. I mean, Sean, we're also talking about, Damien Willemse looks like he might be a chance for this game. So are they playing maybe Willemse this weekend or do they want someone like Kolbe? Because we've seen with France and South Africa did this before in 2022, you want someone that can run and take up space because France kicks so long. So you want someone that can sort of, they catch the ball in their 22, they can sort of run up to the 50 and, especially someone like Kolbe, you giving him the space to be a threat and to cause line breaks and to cause real problems for your defense. Um, so then that's a possibility. Fly half, maybe, between the three fly halves that we have. Yeah, I think there's a few things that maybe are the cause of maybe Rassie and the coaching staff taking a few extra days to think about selection.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about injuries, so I would like to think that it's a case of, are they going to risk Willemse?
Yeah.
He's just come back. If he doesn't play against France, then we're almost guaranteed that he'll play against Ireland. So there's kind of that. Like we have a chance of him playing in both, or we have a chance of him playing in half or one. So it's kind of a bit touch and go. I think if we're going to play Kolbe at fullback, which is a reality. Then Ethan Hooker is going to have a massive role because the thing with Kolbe, I would love him to play 15, especially against France, because he played so much 15 at Toulouse, but also for a little bit at Toulon.
Yeah.
I would love him to be there and play 15. The thing is we need to have a big body running off him somewhere to draw a defender because
Yeah.
Willemse is no problem clattering into a couple of people where I prefer Ches and Colby's not going in there, chest on chest with guys. He will do it. Like that's the thing.
He's
Chelsea's got
crazy
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah, he's got that bounce factor, but having Hooker there, that take 10 meters, offload to Hooker. Hooker can play Chesney in a bit of space or can just truck it up himself, and then we can hit Chesney second phase. You never know.
Yeah. So yeah, lots to talk about and we'll see. I mean, even with France, I think there's a lot of questions. It looks like they'll play Michael Gilliard at 8. He's been playing at lock mostly for Lyon. Looks like Aldrit might not even be in the 23, which is a big surprise. Like the likes of Aldrit, Bai, Rumat don't seem to be in the main squad. We'll see maybe if Jalibert sneaks into the team, probably not. Toma Ramos seems like he'll come back. It seemed like he was welcoming his child, or newborn child into his family, so that's why he wasn't in last week's squad. So yeah, I think for both teams there's a lot of interesting questions, and because of the injuries, I think to both squads, and probably France have more of the injuries, it's how do you sort of piece things together? Because obviously this is probably one of the matches of the November series. So I think there's a lot to look forward to there.
Absolutely. And also, in the new world ranking, England have overtaken
Yeah.
France in the world rankings, which is something that'll piss the French off more than it'll will cost them a game against us. Like,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a shit one. Like they really need to go and win because they want to beat us in Paris because they have to do it, but also they want to reclaim and get on top of England.
Do France really care about the world rankings? I mean, obviously they literally sent a second, third team in July.
No.
And I mean, even
But
with
but if you speak to them and you start revving them about it and tell them that England's above them, then it matters.
fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, look, especially with there's a World Cup draw happening in December. If you're in the top six, you're fine because you'll be one of the top seeds. I don't think France is going to drop below sixth, so I don't think it matters that much. So yeah, I mean, but the fact that it's England, I think that's probably more the motivation there for sure. Let's go to Chicago now, Sean. Ireland versus New Zealand. Obviously, this is where Ireland committed one of the biggest upsets ever when they won against New Zealand in 2016. 9 years later, it's New Zealand that win 26 points to 13. Um, a weird game, I think, in many ways. Sean, I think you can maybe talk about that. Um, the NFL markings, obviously, Soldier Field is a field that the Chicago Bears play on. The commentary and the camera angles were weird. They couldn't put up the red card defense on the big screen. So then it took a bit of time because the referees had to run to small little TV in the corner there to watch it. Yeah, I mean, the crowd didn't seem like it was that into it, even though it seemed like it was full. And apparently, one of the articles says 70% of the crowd were American. I don't know if that's true, but whatever. Or maybe they live in America, but they may be
Yeah.
Irish or Kiwis, whatever the case may be. So yeah, Sean, I mean, I know we have a World Cup there in 6 years. The more I see of rugby in America, the more and obviously America themselves played, we'll get that later. The more I'm getting worried about this World Cup.
Yeah, it was just weird. The thing is, it's not like it was the first time ever. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like they've played there before. We
literally.
kind of know it was these teams. It was weird. It was very disjointed. Uh, it was strange. Also, not part of the Autumn Nation series. So, like, independents were running it. Very just odd, bizarre. But I tell you, one group of people that it didn't affect was New Zealand. The All Blacks were defensively pretty sound. They were up for it. I think tactically they beat Ireland, but it was just yeah. If you add all of this stuff together, like all of that weirdness of all the logistics that you mentioned, but add to the fact that this is now this big rivalry. You add to the fact that New Zealand are not really that fantastic and they have their moments, and then Ireland came in so completely undercooked, and it was just very weird. It started off strange, and then the All Blacks really, really kind of got to grips with the game and they took control. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get to the record. Was it a record for you, Sean?
Yes. So the only space that the red card can be discussed would be the actual force of impact. But the force of impact does stop Bowden Barrett directly, like in his steps, and he reels off. So I don't. I know Bowden Barrett's come out and said, "Listen, he doesn't believe that it was a red card." Blah blah blah. Whatever, bro. Like I'm all for it. Maybe he didn't think the impact was that bad. Bowden Barrett was definitely rattled.
Yes.
There's definitely like he was definitely affected from a head point of view. With that contact. But all of that aside, like there's no mitigation that comes into play purely because Tag Burn does not assume any tackling position at all. Like, I'm sorry, you cannot stand 2 meters away from the ruck and be surprised when a player is running at you.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally your job in that position there. It's not like he was 3 men out and a guy came running in at a separate angle and like he just didn't assume the position at all. He was, I believe, he was shaping to go to, he was shaping for Beauden Barrett to be dummied. And
Yes.
that's the position he was in, and he was not ready. That is not an excuse and no mitigation. The worst part about it is he gets his shoulders up and then he's upright, he makes head contact. It's just it's just irresponsible and it's pure a poor, and he wasn't ready for it, and that impact caused an injury. It did. Like, I don't care what anyone says, but Beauden Barrett really was hit relatively hard. It doesn't fly as far back as one of the angles suggests, which I was pretty like I was pushing quite hard that Beauden Barrett was driven back. It's not really like he was forced too far back, but he was stopped dead in his tracks and he went backwards. Like, it takes a fair amount of force to do that to a pro rugby player. It doesn't matter what he weighs. So I'm just it's a red card, and I don't have an issue with it. The worst thing that can happen from this now is World Rugby are going to rescind the red card, and then everyone's going to be so confused. No one's going to be able to make any decision at all. But it's a red card according to the law. Like, you can't complain about that red card because it's in the law. Complain about the laws and work to changing that space. But there's no ways that you can package this another way that won't give someone a gray area to smoke someone no arms. It's a tucked arm and he's taken the guy out. Like, this is one out of all of the times that we have been seeing red cards and foul play for this. This is one time that potentially it didn't have to be this bad. And I'm sorry, it's not like it's 5 out of 5 times and the law's completely wrong. It's one time it happened. I doubt we'll ever see something like that again. And the truth is that so many things in rugby happen, you'll never see them again. Like, that is also the very weird space. Like, you could take every piece of contact and try and apply 10 different types of mitigation. But I've made it a long story. It was a red card for me. It may not be as harsh. It may be a low entry thing, but I really feel that it should have been a red card and that he still needs to at least field at least a 2-3 match ban, 1 match ban, whatever the lowest is. But
Don't trigger
we've
South
lost a lot of
Africans. Don't trigger South Africans
we've
by talking about bans. I mean, I think that will cause another issue here.
yeah.
Yeah. I think Shaun, you've completely summarized where I think of it as well. I fully agree. There's just no way, especially when you're this close to a ruck, that you can mitigate what Tyburn was doing. And there's just, yeah, because of the tucked in shoulder and you're upright and all that sort of stuff, it's a red card. And I mean, even I guess he was trying to sort of get to be, and I mean, New Zealand does do the whole like they'll play the forwards in the front and then sort of pass behind toward Jordan or McKenzie if he was on the field and sort of then start the pass from there. I think even Beauden said when he was interviewed about that, he wasn't expecting the ball from Roy God. He thought he was running a dummy line, and Roy God kind of sent him a hospital pass there, quite literally in some ways. So yeah, there's just nothing there. It's unfortunate, and it's not an intentional thing, but there's no intention in rugby. Like, that's not one of the standards
It's
for red cards.
irresponsible.
Yeah,
It's like it falls. It doesn't fall into foul play. It falls into being reckless.
yeah,
But being reckless and in that position that he was in means there's no mitigation, but it's still foul play.
yeah,
He's made head contact. Then you follow the processes, and we will still reach the same outcome.
yeah,
But the other thing is, like, did he want, like, if he had assumed the position and not followed through with the tackle, and Beauden Barrett was a screen,
yeah,
he may have been pinged as a penalty, but he may not have. Like, the whole thing about rugby, and I believe it, like, often people turn around and go, well, what was he supposed to do if the opposition was already over the ball? What was he supposed to do? Blast him out the ruck? Like, but you lost that battle. You were caught in whatever trap was set, whether it was intentional or not intentional.
yeah,
You were caught out. You were in a bad position because of your failings. And that, unfortunately, add to the rest of the stuff. he was done. Because even if Beauden Barrett was a screen, Byrne wasn't ever going to make any impact in that space in any way. And I
Yeah.
think that's what he was trying to do, is almost try to swim past Bowden and try connect back with his defender to cover the inside for
Yeah.
something that happens in the future. But it all boils down to, like, it was reckless. He was done by the man, and it was just poor. Like, he's braced his shoulder, which is self-preservation.
Yeah, of
But
course.
when you brace for impact and your shoulder clatters into someone and he gets buzzed, then I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, and I mean you're 2 meters tall, so anytime you're upright on your shoulder, that's someone's head usually. And look, I think the only thing for Byrne is if he went in for a tackle, even if it was like almost like a half wrap, it probably would have been penalty to Ireland because the All Blacks now are running an obstruction line. So if Boyden didn't get the ball, of course. So you either are tackling or intercepting, especially when you're that close to the ball and to the ruck there. So yeah, I we'll see about what the judiciary and like the citing situation happens there. But yeah, I don't think there should be any complaints. And look, for all the fans of a 20-minute red card, this is literally the situation for what it's made for.
Don't say that. No, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, no, no.
I'm not
No, 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 no,
agreeing.
no.
I'm just
No,
saying
no,
that
no,
like
no, no, no. Don't justify. Don't justify. Don't. Like, you've been reading Jamie Wall's tweets. He was literally sending that shit out. No, no, no. Can whoever's editing this, can you just strike that? Anyone who heard that, just ignore it. No, it shouldn't have been a 20-minute. It should have been a straight red. We shouldn't be operating 20-minute red cards.
yeah.
I tell her, I can't believe you just justified a flipping 20-minute
Well,
red card.
let me just say, I'm not agreeing with the 20-minute red card. I'm just saying it's not part of the game. The New Zealanders have won. They've they've cried. They've gotten their way. If we're gonna continue with this thing, this is literally the situation that everyone wanted a 20-minute red card for. It's not intentional. It's not like malicious foul play and all that sort of stuff. It was a mistake, whatever the case is. And, the team is not disadvantaged. And I mean, literally, Ireland was leading for 60 minutes. Like, it's not like it really had an impact on their game in that sense. I mean, obviously, they lose their best player or one of their best players. But even when I mean, I wouldn't judge rugby fans on YouTube comments, but when I was watching the highlights on the New Zealand YouTube channel, so many people like, I'm from South Africa and I don't think this is a red card and red cards are stupid. And I'm just like, you're probably the same people that want a 20-minute red card. This is literally for you and you're still complaining. So yeah, you can't even please those people that want it. So I just want to clarify again because Shaun might kick me out of the podcast. I am not in favor of the 20-minute red card. RugbyBits is still anti 20-minute red card.
Listen, Cooks is cruising around Paris. Someone needed to give a rant. I even feel like I'm red. I'm red in my face from the anger. But you're forgiven.
Yeah.
I'll drop it. But I will remind you about it again somewhere along the line.
If I agree with more 20-minute red cards, you're more than welcome to. Look, I think on the New Zealand side of things, yeah, I mean, do I think it was the most impressive performance? I don't necessarily think so. I do think there are some green shoots starting to form there. Two of them are some of the players that have been brought in this year, which is Fabian Holland, who was man of the match, and he was fantastic, especially
Again,
considering he's now this 22-year-old senior lock because Scott Barrett was out, and now it was him and Josh Lord playing. And Quinn Tupaea, who had, I think, 3 turnovers, and he seems to have now sort of owned that 13 jersey. And I think those two are really sort of cementing themselves into the squad.
very much so. I'm not a massive fan of Holland. Uh, but then again, I'm also the same guy that didn't think Scott Barrett was good enough to play Test rugby. So don't take what I say as gospel. But he does put in big performances. I thought, listen, especially considering they lost Scott Barrett, I thought that Lord and Holland were incredible. Um, Lord with a couple of steals, so good. Holland's totally forced himself into the match day 23. I don't think we won't, like, for every big game we'll probably see him in the match day 23, probably starting now considering that performance. If Scott Barrett is fit, it looked like quite a bad cut on his shin. So you would expect him back this week. Yeah. And Quinn Tupaea is quite an interesting one. It was, yeah, he's doing so well. I just want to see Leicester Fainga'anuku play more. And we obviously saw it this weekend because Jordie had to go off injured. So Tupaea was at 12, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember how that worked, but I think Tupaea was at 12 and Fainga'anuku at 13. But yeah, Tupaea's been massive since coming back. Um, he's done well. Um, like if I had to go through everything, I thought Taylor's starting to get back into the mix. Parker, I like him. He does his job. He does it well. He does it quietly. He's not a guy like he's a guy you could easily forget is playing, not because he doesn't do a lot of stuff, just because he's not doing any freaking crazy set of the fireworks. I think he balances things out a little bit better, but nicer. Will Jordan's interesting. I still don't know if 15 is his space. I'm kind of between it all over the show. Sometimes he has a good game and I'm okay with it. Sometimes I think he'd probably be better at wing. But the biggest one for me is Cam Roygaard. Like the whole like everything that happens, everything that is good generally goes through him. But he's also got the luxury of having Bowden Barrett there or Mackenzie, who are sort of both in form. Bowden's done exceptionally well, and like he's kind of struggled a bit with form, but sort of been building up really nicely. I thought he had a good game. Listen, he got buzzed twice really hard. I mean, even that hit from Ringrose really it was crazy. He took two massive head knocks. And yeah, Cam Roygaard is the kind of player who you need. New Zealand need him in a time when Scott Robertson's really trying to kind of tie in the core of his players. Cam Roygaard needs to be starting and stay fit for as long as possible. You can build things around that. Like he's struggling with his loose chair in terms of who he wants, where he wants them. There's that. But Roygaard's got to be there. You can manage between Mackenzie and Barrett or whoever. Jordie at 12 is a must. Quintupai looks like he's a must at 13. You can rotate with Fainga'anuku, but he can sit on the bench and move around. And your back three, you'll just manage according to form.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. I thought New Zealand did really well in knowing what was going to come at them from Ireland, managing it, and then scoring a couple of wonder tries, which is something we haven't really seen them do a lot of. Like they were natural tries for New Zealand, where previously a lot of stuff seems forced.
Yeah. Look, yeah, I think the way the tries were taken were great. And they seem to have as I noticed there's a bit of an echo in this room, they seem to have like found a way to use their playmakers better to exploit defenses. Like that just wasn't really happening consistently in the rugby championship, for example. It didn't seem like New Zealand were like, okay, let's zero in on this particular question mark or weakness, exploit it, and then score a try. So you'll see on the stats, for example, Gary Ringrose had 15 tackle attempts. He made eight and he missed seven. Now, for a 13, that's not the worst news in the world. 13s are usually shooting up, and especially Ringrose. He's shooting up constantly to try and make hits, like you just said. Now, he smashed Jordie Barrett. He usually gets it right more often than not. But I think for two of the tries, one I think was more his fault, and one I think was actually more on Aki. But with the one where Fainga'anuku makes the break, he sort of stops himself. And look, to be fair, it's Leicester Fainga'anuku. I get it, but he
He
was also
runs he runs so hard.
yeah. That's why
Him and
he was like,
him
whoa,
and
whoa, whoa.
him and Caleb Clark, they run like on a different aggression level. It's very interesting to
Yeah,
see that difference in aggression with ball in hand in Test rugby. It's not like it's like a very good club rugby player versus a crap one. This is test rugby against really, really good players.
And I think that is, I was going to get to it a bit later, but I think that's what New Zealand has kind of unlocked with their backline. Like when they play at least one of Leicester or Caleb Clark in their backline, I think it just adds a bit of dynamism that they just don't really have because their best backline will probably have one of Bowden and DMAC. We'll probably have Jordie at 12, who's a really good player, but probably not like a dynamic runner with the ball.
Yes.
Will Jordan is now, when you play him at 15, he's more of a playmaker than he is a play finisher. So you're kind of taking away that opportunity for him to sort of make those clean breaks and to score opportunities himself. So you need, look, it's maybe not prime Julian Sevilla or Joe Rokethoko or someone like that, but with Clark and Fainga'anuku, they actually have people that can beat defenders one-on-one, either by running over them or running around them. And that's just made their attack just a lot better, just having those two than what they were doing maybe in the Merv Rugby Championship where they're still trying to find someone. So, Fainga'anuku gets around Ringrose.
Ringrose.
He draws two. He puts the offload to Jordan. They score the try from that. So that was good. And then in the second one, I think Ringrose was shooting up to try and hit Bowden Barrett when he passed it to Damon McKenzie. I think actually the problem wasn't Ringrose. The problem was Bandi Aki because Ringrose and Lowe are both shooting up. Aki's drifting. I don't know if maybe Aki's thinking he's playing for Connacht and not for Ireland. I mean, Connacht has a green top as well, so maybe got confused. So he's drifting. And I think if he rushed up, Bowden wouldn't have that opportunity to step inside of Ringrose and then to get the ball to Damon McKenzie. Bowden would probably have to take into contact or try to pass earlier. So Bowden goes around Ringrose, then Damon McKenzie is into space, and then they score. So, but those are well-worked tries, and I think that's what is good for New Zealand. Like, they need to have maybe even all four of them, but at least three of Bowden, Jordie, Jordan, and DMAC on the field at all times. And like you said, I'm also not really fully into Will Jordan at 15. I think I'd prefer someone like McKenzie playing at 15 and Jordan at 14. But when they have those four, they work well together and they are able to sort of play, make, and create opportunities for the other finishers in the team and the power runners that you have with Tupaea and Fainga'anuku and Clark and even Leroy Carter. So because it seems like how New Zealand plays that they like that screen of forwards, and then one of the forwards pops it back to Bowden or whoever sort of coming at the back, and then the other playmaker sort of comes with him and one of the wingers, and then there's sort of that third wave and come in there. And they need to sort of work with that. And that's how their attack becomes more dynamic because there's been many games this year and last year where New Zealand's attack just seems very bland. And this is what actually gives it a bit more spice there. And you're completely right with the forwards. Like we've said before, their forwards are their strength. Like, you found Holland, you found Parker, you have all the other players that are established. Josh Lord probably has his best test in his career so far. So you have the basis there. You will always get, pretty decent at scrums against most sides. Okay, I know the lines were just a mess for everyone. I'm not sure if that was because I feel like there were a lot of not straight calls as well. So I don't know what that problem was, but you'll get that with the
Damn
forwards.
hookers, man.
But yeah, so I like how that backline sort of formed there. So yeah, I this is now the question for Razor is how to make sure that that becomes a consistent thing. Or is it because maybe Ireland are just old grandpas all over the park and that's what you got around them?
Yeah, listen, the biggest issue for me is Ireland not making a single line break in that whole game.
Yeah.
That is
Shame. I should say it has been updated to them being given two line breaks. I'm
uh,
not sure
both of
when.
them Stuart McCloskey probably.
Yeah.
Um, but Stuart McCloskey was incredible. But the thing is he was he was allowed it in a way. Like this sounds like I'm being disrespectful. I'm not. Whatever Stuart McCloskey did, New Zealand did so well to wrap up everything around it. Nothing could come from it. I think is probably the best. Like he had a great game, but they just weren't getting anything from that. And that's the worst thing. It's like there's no point in someone doing all that work and then just your team does nothing. Very interesting is if you look at James Lowe, Bundy Archie, and I don't think Gary Ringrose fits into this category long term, but for this game, definitely. Three backline players that are pivotal in your success are just not vibing at the moment.
Yeah.
Like Lowe and Archie are struggling and struggling so much so that you're kind of looking at that going, is their time done? And I'm hating that because I love Bundyaki. I really do. Ringrose has been iffy for a season and a bit now, but that could just be like he plays on the edge in that he can potentially miss a tackle or gift someone a line break stroke try. But then he also puts in those big tackles, which really changes everything because
Yeah.
he generally makes that hit on someone that is linking. It's not a crash ball player. So that person struggles with it the next time it happens because he's scared that Ringrose is going to absolutely cut him in half. Because the one thing that man can do is he can hit you. Like he's got shoulders like boulders. So between those three players, in whichever way, shape, or form they're on the field, their backline is just stunted. I was surprised that McCloskey was taken off and Archie put on. I have no problem with Archie coming on at that time. I just think it probably should have been for Ringrose. Ringrose wasn't having a great game, but a lot of people weren't. A lot of people were rusty. That's the coach's baby. Like it was such a weird space. Crowley didn't have a great game, but he did have a good game. Like
Yeah.
there was that. Like I thought he managed it really well, but it wasn't how he played against Leinster. Like it was completely different. But New Zealand changed. New Zealand adjusted their defense and targeted players in a way that they thought Ireland were going to play, and it worked.
Yeah.
Because Ireland were a little bit not one-dimensional, but a little bit much of the muchness, same, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, one thing I really noticed, like I don't want to be that guy because I don't like being that guy, but I'm going to be him, is Andrew Porter, that man, and his scrumming. No, like seriously, how? Like we've heard about this, I've seen it on occasion, but he did it the whole game. And for like what? What? It's against the law. It's wild.
Well, he was penalized twice, wasn't he?
Is that all? Like how many scrums were there? How many scrums were there in 67 minutes that he played and he got pinged twice? Got to be shitting me.
Look, I don't know what Porter does. I mean, at least he was pinned. I think one of them was quite early.
He sets up like this. This is Hooker, Dan Sheehan, Andrew Porter. How's that? That's how he scrums.
Yeah, look, Vocalo would have a lot of fun with Andrew Porter later this year. Um, yeah, look, the problem though for New Zealand, I mean for Ireland is there's a lot of things that are just not working right now. So
Yeah.
Scrum is getting penalized. Lineouts are still a problem since 2023. Like we've been talking about how the lineout is just not working. Then we said no, it needs Omani, but it didn't really work with Omani. They were like, okay, maybe it needs Byrne. Obviously, Byrne got a red card today. So I'm not sure what's happening to Paul O'Connell and the lineup, but it's now 3 years of this lineout just not working at all. Defense is a big problem. This is, I think, their third match in their last, like, if we don't count the ones they had played against Portugal. I think it's their third match in six that they've conceded more than 3 tries. And Ireland pre-2023 and even last year used to be the team that just doesn't concede like maybe more than 2 tries in a game. Like you might get to 20, but Ireland had the attack to obviously get more and they would keep you to under 20. So now their defense is working. Their attack, I mean, New Zealand just doubled them up on line breaks and on post-contact meters. So they're just not really getting much. So you're not finding too many positives there. Like you've just stripped away on a lot of things that are just like, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working. And you're just like, what now must Ireland do if they want to stay in that sort of top 4, top 5 in world rugby right now? Like, I mean, I know England has now surpassed France, and we talked about that. But I mean, in reality, I think most people would say France is a top four side. So is it now England surpassing Ireland is basically the question. And yeah, I mean, I guess there were positives. McCloskey looked good. I think he got injured, which is the reason why he got subbed. So I think there's some growing situation. McCloskey looked good. I think Paddy McCarthy seemed like he debuted pretty well. O'Brien was good with the opportunities that he got. Doris looked really good, especially considering he didn't play in 6 months.
I was going
But
to mention it. He's like in the top three tackler, and he played
yeah,
like 38 minutes, 37 minutes.
just a ridiculous game from him. So you're just like, okay, yeah, what does Andy Farrell build on? Or are we overreacting a little bit? And this just literally for most of these players, their first or second game since the Lion series.
I I think it's a combo. It's just how we're going to weight that combo of what
Yeah.
you've said. And I'm falling more on the line of it's a little bit of an overreaction for now. The thing is how we perceive this game was greater than how Farrell and the coaching staff and everyone perceived it. If you understand what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
we wanted this to be a World Cup final vibe, like just throw it all out there, like have a jaw. The World Cup final that they couldn't have, you know, and nasty dig. So I don't think it's that bad. It's a combo. Definitely, players need more time in the saddle, A. And B, there are a few players that actually are at risk of being dropped, but for who? And I think that's
Yes.
where the question lies, is when you look at the Springboks, for example, there are three or four players, like if you're not performing, there's one player that could come into your place tomorrow that would probably do a job. England are in a similar-ish position, um, and that's what's perhaps happening with Ireland, and that could be the coach's problem that they have created by going all in on 2023. You know,
Yeah.
this could be the fallout of that, and that like there's a whole bunch of conversations and like equations that we could throw in and we could blame it on a number of things and we'll never know the truth. But by the time they play us at Dublin, I do believe if you said you can beat New Zealand in Chicago or you can beat the Springboks in Dublin, they would pick Springboks in Dublin,
Yeah.
Dublin over everyone. So that could also be the thing, like make sure they're ready for the Springboks because it doesn't matter what happens against the All Blacks. If they beat the Springboks in Dublin, all's good.
Yeah. I think that's the test for them. If they pass that test, fine. You know what? Ireland is still they can still keep their ticket. They're still in the VIP section of international rugby. But if not, that's now big losses and not just like small losses. Two big losses against New Zealand in the last 2 years. A a surprising loss to England at Twickenham last year. A very big loss against France, obviously in the Six Nations this year. And at least for 60 minutes against the Springboks, that first test in Pretoria, they're looking like they're getting a hiding, and then they came back to their credit. So that's now all of the other teams in that sort of big four, big five, all beating you, and you don't have like a winning record against them. So the South Africa game, I think, is important for them to just keep their ticket validated to speak like that. And even that Australia game, I mean, Australia will also now be, full strength Australia. They'll have Vicky Tau, they'll have Will Skelton. We know how Will Skelton sort of brings the heebie-jeebies out of the Irish players. So if they lose that game, I think they need to sort of be maybe step down in the international rankings. But the South Africa game can at least bring them some credit. Or that is almost like the swing game. I think for a lot of like these older players, it's like, okay, if the James Lowe's, the Bandiakis aren't able to do it against South Africa, we need a new approach. But you're right, Sean. I'm not too sure who is coming in. Like a lot of the players are either also 30, like the Tom Farrells, the Stu McCloskeys, or someone like Rob Ballacoon, he's always injured. So you're just like, and I mean, loose forwards, people are like, no, Van der Fleer must go. But you're just like, I'm not sure who's the number seven that you can play in there. Like James Ryan, people want him out. Also, I'm just like, well, all your other locks are flanks, Aaron is with Truku, like they play bed, they mostly play at the flank. So yeah, obviously Ireland just don't have the strength and depth that England, New Zealand, South Africa, and France have. That's their big disadvantage.
Don't fall into the trap Razor fell into and like don't field players that actually do all your work, all your hard work for you.
Mm.
Because like Van der Fleer, James Ryan, like top two tacklers on the day, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, if not very close to, like you, I promise you, someone else is gonna have to pick up that load, and that means that they're not doing something else. Granted, they didn't do it on Saturday anyway, but that's the kind of thing that you do. Generally, a lot of sides, a lot of teams have generally a player that is almost feels like he's a designated tackler. Like they always put him in that position, and he
Yeah.
just goes and shunts, 25 tackles a game, something like that. It seems, but Josh van der Fleer does that. He does a hell of a lot of work at ruck time. He does a lot of carry work, and he links quite well too. Like I don't know who's going to replace Josh van der Fleer. I really
Yeah.
don't. Like when you turn around and you want to say you want to drop someone like that, I'm just like, but for who? Like who's
Yeah.
going to fill up that role? You need to change your entire loose trio, or your maybe even your four and your six and seven to manage
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's kind of like Sekonisi for South Africa. Like, there's so many other knock-on effects to not having that person in the ruck, not having that tackler, not having that carrier. So, yeah, yeah, I think that's where maybe you'd be very careful before making a decision like that. But yeah, look, I don't. Yeah, I still don't think the loose forwards are the biggest problem. I think obviously there's problems with the tight five. We've talked about the set piece. I think the backline is just not really sort of clicking. Like you said with Crowley, it seemed like he kicked a bit too much with a lot of those attacking kicks. Obviously, if it comes off, great. If it doesn't, then you look like a bit of a fool. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think for Ireland, that Australian South Africa game are going to be big. Speaking
Yeah.
of, Australia played England at Twickenham this weekend. Australia obviously didn't have all of their, first choice players with the likes of Nikki Tau and Will Skelton still on club duty. So England beat them 25 points to 7. Um, yeah, I mean, England scored 2 tries from, box kicks. Um, I think Charlie Morgan was made an article, but then he clarified that it wasn't his title. But then they're talking about Borth ball, which is Stephen Borthwick ball. So now he has to now be the person that sort of came up with that term. You have the Borth ball, you have the Pom squad, their English version of the Bomb squad as well. Look, Stephen Borthwick has sort of come 5 minutes before class started, copied a bit of Rassi's homework and, made it his own. Fair enough to him. It's a weird thing. I mean, look, we've talked about England a lot in the last few, months and years and about Borthwick. And I think we're both not convinced, maybe you're more not convinced than I am. But yeah, I think we can't deny that there's something happening there that is really positive. And look, they won 8 in a row. They've it seemed like they found like a lot of combinations. Seemed like obviously they have a lot of strength and depth in certain positions. New players are always coming in and playing well, which I think is always a good sign for you as a team. And I think the main thing for me about England is they're really good now at a lot of the basics. Scrum looks really good and they have really good front rowers that can at least hold their own, I think, against most teams. Lineout looks really good, especially when Jamie George is throwing in. Kick chase is fantastic. Tom Roebuck was fantastic with, retrieving some of those balls. Defense looks pretty good as well. So, yeah, I mean, obviously they need a bit more magic dust, I think, in the attack, but it's looking like a really strong team.
They're looking good, and they have a lot more depth than I think people realize. It may not be too experienced, and it's something that Borthwick's going to have to work on. And he doesn't quite strike me as a guy that wants to have like 40 players to pick from. I think he'd really like to minimize it down.
Yeah.
But he's got options, and obviously with England A playing this November, that's massive for him. I think any side that can field an A team against fairly decent competition in the same country as you is a good thing, because I just think geographically it'll be able to help, and maybe he casts an eye over it or they have meetings, etc. Um, yeah, it was good. Listen, I'm a big Jamie George fan. There's no hiding that, and he's they're going to struggle to replace him
Yeah.
because they, I know he's not their first choice, but he should still be, in my opinion. And he adds so much value to that squad and to a match day 23. He would be in my match day 23 until the day he retires, if I had a choice. He works loads off the ball. His darts are perfect, and he does so much work, scrum time and more time. So yeah, it was good. Nicely balanced. Ted Hill's not in the mix. I have to say his name. It's part of my contractual obligations in the RugbyBits podcast. Ted Hill still didn't make the squad that was re-announced, but the one thing I'm happy about, and I definitely pinged him in the past, but Pepper, I'm so happy for him. The Guy Pepper is, I know I love Ted Hill. We can play them both. We can. But Guy Pepper really is like a 50 test player in the making as well. I really believe that as well. And I've got to come right eventually. You know, I'm calling all these players and something's got to stick. But he is good. He really is good. Like he's very much like a quiet player and he just gets through a mountain of work. But he does a lot of really good things too. Obviously, Curry's come back, so how they balance the loose trio, I don't know. There's a lot that's got to happen there, but they're looking good. Like their attack looks pretty comfortable. They've got options on both wings to start and bench and rest. Um, they're looking good. Dingwall had a good game. Like he was pretty happy. But I think they could do a complete change of their midfield as well and still be
Yeah.
competitive. They can change at 9 and 10. I think 15 is a bit of an interesting one at the moment. Stewart is a little bit polarizing. Like he does really good things, he does really bad things. I don't think he had a great game on Saturday, but you kind of like he is such an imposing figure in the air, like it sometimes makes you want to not kick onto him,
Yeah.
even if he's having a bad day, just because he's 6 foot 100. When you look at him, you're like, I need to run at that guy with two players because he's not going to pick the right option. And that changes everything, and that's where the midfield comes into the mix. But yeah, I think Borthwick's in a good space. I don't trust him to make these right decisions moving forward. But I've no fun basing my opinion on just like a gut feel when he's actually proving that he does have what it takes and he's building slowly but surely because England are getting better. They're not taking massive steps back. It's either the same or a little bit better. And I mean, we've got a year and a bit out from the World Cup. I think Borthwick's quietly confident.
Yeah. I think he's in the perfect position, and most positions, I think, maybe except for lock and fullback, as we mentioned, have, I think, two or three options and really legit options. Like, I think, props, Obano, Rod, and Apokufojo weren't even involved yesterday or on Saturday. So, those are options there as well. Hooker, yeah, I guess that's also possible, one that's not quite there. Count Dickie's line out darts aren't great. Theo Dan, I think, still needs to develop, I think. But, with Jamie George, if you could get him to 2027, please do, like, as far as possible. Lock, when George Martin is fit, and I mean, the problem is that he's not always fit, but like, when you have Martin, Chisholm, and Itoje as a lock rotation, that's ridiculous. So he can sort of do horses for courses. Like if he wants more fetches, he can put in Pep and Pollock together with Earl. If he wants, just absolutely just workhorse, loose trio, Curry and Underhill can sort of come back together, that's fine. I mean, Tom Willis obviously choosing to go to France is unfortunate because he's more of a traditional eight, and that kind of gives Ben Earl a free run to that jersey. But Earl's, I mean, I don't love him at eight, but he can do a decent job there. You know, and yeah, Roebuck has been fantastic. I think he might be the best player in the air in the world right now. Like he out jumps Wally, obviously, to create that first try for Earl. And the second try, I think it was against Potter. He was able to sort of get that tap back, and then Pollock obviously collects and scores from that as well. That a 25-meter rolling ball try, like a lot of things are coming together for England. And yeah, I mean, I think if you're sort of ticking those things off and it's basically just attack, I mean, defense, I think still needs to be worked on. Obviously, they change their coaches every 2 weeks. But, I think it still needs maybe some work. And I don't know what Wigglesworth will do that's different from the other 43 defense coaches they've had. But I guess
I was impressed with their defense.
it was good. Yeah, I
I
don't think it
agree
was
with
awful.
you. I agree with you. There's probably some spin and polishing that needs to happen, but I thought defensively, like the foundations are there.
Yeah.
I'm quite impressed. That's one of their big things for me, but I may have to watch again just to double check.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily a problem that I had the defense. I'm just also saying, like, look, I don't think they were tested much because Australia wasn't, all at
True.
all guns as well. But I know even from the Six Nations, but again, that was a previous defense coach. They allowed a lot of 22 entries and were, either skilled enough or lucky enough that people didn't score from those 22 entries. So we'll see with the defense, but the attack is now, I guess, the big work on. And look, if you have 2 years to work on an attack, that's a great place to be in. So Lee Blackett has 2 years, and maybe that's the perfect time where by the time you click, everyone doesn't have the chance to have a lot of footage
Yes.
on it and to work on it. So,
Yeah.
that could be something that works out for them.
Yeah, yeah, that is a very good point. And you're right. The Wallabies probably didn't do enough on the day.
Yeah.
You, they've got a starting 15. They've got a very clear first choice starting 15, and if they don't have two of those players, it really impacts them in a bad way. Like they're scrambling the whole way. Um, so that's something that they're going to have to work on. When is Joe Schmidt leaving his role? I thought it was now. I'm so
I think
confused.
it's now they say it's after the rugby championship next year. It keeps
What?
changing.
Yes, it was after the Lions tour. Now Les Kiss is nowhere. I reckon Les Kiss is he sent his contract out to three separate lawyers and said, "Can you just read everything because I think they're going to stiff me." Um, like it's weird. I don't understand it, but listen, it's better for Australia right now for this continuity, I feel. But I do definitely know that this unsureness, weirdness, kind of not wanting to let go of my baby is potentially a bad thing. And it like we've all seen when you leave coaches too long and put them in the job late, it goes belly up. Look at Heineke Meyer, he was in the job, what, 2 years too late. Razor Robertson also, he like a year too late. I mean, he may have been shown up then already when he went in, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Australia really struggled a little bit. Probably wanted to do, well, not probably, they definitely wanted to do a lot better. But now they brought back their big guns now. So let's see how they grow. Like
Yeah.
if they can keep all the big boys together for this entire November, play their first choice and bench and rotate their first choice 23 for this whole Autumn Nation series, I think it would do them the world of good.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I kind of differ with you when you say like Australia only have like a 15. I think actually are also building some depth. I just think if a lot of their key players are out, or when those key players are out, that's when things fall apart. Because I think if Paisami was with Ikitau, that's fine. I think if it was Valentini, but with Skelton there, that's also fine. Like, it's just now if all of Skelton, Ikitau, Hooper, Wright, obviously Slippers just retired as well. When all of those players are out, and you pretty much, I mean, in terms of your world-class players, it's, you know, I don't even know if you could call them world-class, these ones world-class yet, but it's basically McBride, Swali'i, and Jorgensen that are left. They're now the three people sort of trying to run, like sometimes when you have like an evening shift at a bar, now you're understaffed, and now these guys are all sort of trying to fill the gaps of like 10 people when it's only two people that are there. So, yeah, that's where I'm just like with this game. It happened, you got your extra Twickenham money. It's all good. It's good experience for the likes of, Paisami and Edmed. Still not sure about him, but Edmed gets a good test there. Yeah, you move on and then you see. What I am a bit concerned about with obviously they have a lot of questions at 10, and maybe Carter Gordon might play this weekend against Italy. Who knows? I mean, he's now had 2 weeks of relearning the rugby union rules, so we'll see. They've got they've had the longest rugby year in the history of the world. So they've got Italy, then Ireland, then France. How do they approach that? So I think they want at least one of those Ireland and France sculpts. Obviously, they need to win against Italy, and I think they probably play a full strength team there. I wonder how they play that, but also are they going to integrate Carter Gordon as 10? But also, like I think their kicking game is a bit off without Wright and O'Connor even. Even Lolesio and even Tom Line, I think, is a pretty good kicker compared to Edmed. So, who sort of takes that responsibility because Gordon is kind of left on his own to do that. So, yeah, I'm keen to see how they go about it. I think look, Italy, they can't lose again. Obviously, that was what pretty much fired Dave Rennie. So you play that game, you try to win that game. I think for them, a successful tour is either the Ireland game or the France game. They need to get a scalp there.
I'm gonna just push the boat out here.
Yeah.
I do think a full strength Wallaby side with this current squad that they've got now, like
Yeah.
obviously I know Wright's injured and all that. I think with the players they've got available to them now, they could beat Ireland and France.
Yeah.
But there would be two big upsets. I think Ireland would be the biggest upset. Um, so do they play them and then us, right?
Ireland plays Australia first. So they go Japan, then Australia, then South Africa.
Yeah. Imagine we face an Ireland side that have just lost to Australia and have lost to New Zealand.
Yeah.
It would be chaos.
Yeah.
They would be sending out CVs for new coaches.
Maybe Joe Schmidt might apply. Um, yeah, look,
Coach,
yeah, we'll
yeah.
see. And look, the coaching thing is a bit weird, but look, I mean, England has shown you don't need to have a solid coaching staff. Like you can change things every 3 weeks. It's all good. Like no, it doesn't.
Players, coaches, freaking everybody. Everybody. The only one that's safe is Borthwick. I think he's kind of like, I'm just going to make a whole bunch of changes. So when I have my performance review, it'll be like, it was that guy's fault. You know, the guy that left 38 coaches ago, it was him, but we've kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What? Fair enough. I mean, that's a good way to make yourself important at work. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, England, I think for them, I almost want to say this kind of secures their autumn. Like, if they lose to New Zealand, it's not a big score. If it's like a close game, 80th minute, I think it's fine. Like, and if obviously they beat Argentina and Fiji as well, because I guess if they beat New Zealand, it's a bonus, and then we are like, okay, England's like a top 14, they're a contender. But I think, yeah, if England lose this game and can still stay a bit under the radar, that's also fine. I think beating Australia was the sort of the main objective, just to sort of keep them a little bit at arm's length. They need to do the same to Argentina, obviously to Fiji, because Fiji literally won their last game in Twickenham. So yeah, I think they put themselves in a good position. And obviously people are talking about them having 8 wins in a row and, all they're looking good. And I mean, look, to be fair, those 8 wins, they have France, they beat Argentina twice away from home. It's not Mickey Mouse wins here. So, vibes are looking up there for England. So yeah, I I would, and I think England wouldn't mind playing South Africa right now, not because they would win, but I think they'd like to sort of just see how far they are. Like England, I think needs a lot more of those like measuring stick games. Maybe they are going. Oh, next year they'd be going to Paris next year for Six Nations. I think they need games like that just to see. Okay, we are pretty close, or we still have a bit of work to do. So Yeah, England's in a very exciting spot. I think, if you're an English fan, and look, it's tough for us to say this here as South Africans, but if you're an English fan, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about right now.
Absolutely. They got options. Like they got options
So,
at 10. They got some options at 9, but there are a couple of key spaces. Like if they could have like a George and a Spencer, still go till the next World Cup, like still be involved in the larger squad, I think that would be huge for them.
mm,
But I think out of those two, I think Spencer's on the chopping block. Borthwick doesn't seem like to be a massive fan. Um, but yeah, I think where England get undone is they're starting to have choices now, and they might lose sight of who the combos and options should be.
yeah,
Like there's some clear options, you know that Curry and Underhill are going to start if it was a big game. You know that. Then you got to figure out it's probably Earl. Then Chandler Cunningham South's coming back into the mix. He offers a job at 4, 7, and 8, which we've seen now. They see him as an option at 4. So I think where he might get stuck is he might maybe make a bad decision in terms of combo, like a gut feel, I think it should be this guy this week, and then it kind of wonkies out.
yeah. Look, I mean, yeah, I still have questions about it. I don't know about Freeman at wing. I mean, at center. I think it's just a Rico Freeman situation happening there. I would every big game I play Ollie Lawrence at in the centers. I think even
With
Dingwall and Lawrence work together. I guess I don't mind 4 to 10. Obviously, he's been the most informed player there. It's interesting how they're going to manage the forward Smith and maybe even Farrell at some stage dynamic there. I think they can kind of go horses for courses, like you've said. Look with the loose trios, yeah. I think they can just be like, okay, we need to be fast, we need to be this, we need to be that. But I think the interesting thing about England now, probably different from other England teams in the past, is I think they've got a big, or not big, but like they've got an advantage on pace
mm,
than they haven't had before. So you have a really fast loose trip. You saw how Earl and Pollock obviously finished those opportunities. You saw Pollock also looking at himself on the big screen when he was scoring his try.
yeah, listen, I'm gonna go out to bat for him. Like even when Potter broke away with the intercept
He
try, I
also
was looking
looked
up at the
fair.
screen because the screen lets you know how far away the guys are. But
Fair
the
enough.
fact that all that happened and then he got ankle tapped. Listen, Pollock's another one in the conversation of how you're going to balance your loose trio.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to have Curry, Underhill, and Pollock as your loose trio?
I would say Pollock is your Quagga Smith. He's number
I
20 unless proven otherwise.
I think he is. I don't for a second believe Pollock will carry on doing what he's doing, and Borthwick isn't forced to start him because of pressure. Uh, like
Also fair.
I don't think the media and the fans will allow it. I really don't. Um, so I hear what you're saying. I
Yeah.
just don't see that happening. To be fair, Pollock is a very good rugby player. I will never forget after all this big hype, and then when Northampton beat Leinster, the performance he put in that game, I was like, okay,
Really rugby
he
player.
wasn't doing crazy shit. He was just hitting rucks, making steals, just getting his head in dark places. I do want to chat about midfield. I I quite like the idea of Freeman at 13.
Okay.
However, however,
Sorry, I just want to pause because Rugby Business knows Shaw does not like a wing at 13. So this is big.
no, but I've seen him play 13 before. Like this is
Yeah.
not like a Rico. He's made his whole life at 11 and move him to 13 when you've got options. I've seen Freeman play. He's got the attributes. Right now, like making him a 13 I hope this is a case of playing him at 13 so you can polish what you need to polish, move him back to wing. He offers so much out of the air. Like you don't want to put yourself and you don't want to pot commit yourself, put yourself under pressure where a guy like Ollie Lawrence is gonna be forced to play 12. Ollie Lawrence he plays his best rugby at 13. He can play 12, but I was a bit unsure in the beginning. I think 13 is his best spot. Ajomo, I would have him at 12 and Lawrence at 13 for a couple games. I want to have a look at that for England. Absolutely. Dingwall, you can't drop him right now. Owen Farrell will definitely get a chance, and I believe it'll be at 12. I don't think you can drop any of the fly halves at the moment. So you're kind of creating a problem for yourself. But if I had to pick something until the next World Cup, I would have Freeman as a winger that can cover 13, and you can move him after that if you want.
Yeah.
But with the likes of Lawrence at the moment alone, like Lawrence should be your 13. You can play him 12. I don't think a Lawrence and a Freeman would work together if I think about it. That might not necessarily be the best thing. Slade's still in the mix. So they'd play Lawrence at 12 and Slade at 13. I just wanted to see a Jomo come into the mix. He's playing for the England A. I like Freeman. I think, there's so many options there, but everything Freeman's done good for England has been on the wing. Like, he was ridiculous.
Yeah, he was probably the form winger earlier this year. So that's where I'm also like, I don't know if this is worth it. But to be fair, Tom Roebuck pretty much played the Freeman role and was fantastic in the air as well. So, you put yourself in a position now.
You're forcing your hand to make decisions that are going to impact negatively in the future, I feel.
Yeah. So like I said, I think like you said, Sean, if Freeman plays wing first half and then last 20 minutes plays 13, I don't mind that. Like, whatever. Like, if you want that extra pace at 13, like, but the thing is, it's you can see, I mean, I haven't watched the full game, but even from the highlights, it's a winger playing at center. Like, it's so clear. Like, the way he makes defensive reads, it's more about, okay, I'll use my pace to catch up, not, okay, I've put myself in the right space to make the hit like a Creel or Ringrose would do.
Yeah.
It's obviously, I think there were two 2-on-1s that he didn't pass to Fainga'anuku too. So, like, it's those things that you need at 13, and you only get that if he plays there every week. And I don't think he even plays, I mean, he doesn't play at 13 every week for Northampton, if I'm not mistaken. Like,
no, he's played a couple games, and you're right, like, he does make errors there. Like, honestly, the errors he made, they are the same errors I was giving Moody shit for.
Yeah.
And the same errors I've been giving Rico Ioane shit for. Like, that really happens. I just don't have a problem with him being drafted in there, but they've got enough options in the midfield at both 12 and 13 that Freeman doesn't have to be retreaded into a 13. If the objective is to have him as a good enough 13 that he can play 20 minutes in an emergency and a test match when you don't have another 13 option, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
And then against Romania in the World Cup, hypothetically, if you want to rest someone else. But even Freeman, you would expect you'd want to rest him against those minnow nations in the World Cup because he's the first choice 14,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, center's interesting because Ajoma, like you said, is playing for England A. Seb Atkinson is injured, and he was pretty good actually in Argentina earlier this year. So if England's going to do something different against Fiji, I mean, I don't think they'll go like full second team, but if they do want to sort of give people chances, I guess they maybe go Dingwall Lawrence perhaps for this game, or maybe Lawrence Freeman. But I think all of this is leading me to say that I think they see Ollie Lawrence more as a 12 than 13, which is a bit sad because I think Lawrence on the outside is lethal. I would love for him to play more 13.
And he's going to be linking up with a guy that is big and strong like Freeman.
Yeah.
To be fair, Dingwall's like a copy paste of Freeman physically wise. So it's but like you really have the opportunity to have an absolute monster play both positions as opposed to just one.
Yeah. So until we see Ojoma play, international rugby, like, from what I've seen, obviously, I'm just like, I'd love to see him there, but, maybe I don't know, the coach don't think he's ready. So until
he can play 10, so he's a bashing and a linking 12.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, until then, my sort of center combination would be Dingwall Lawrence. Look, Dingwall gave away that intercept. It was a bad intercept to give away because, like, it was so slow and scripted. It was easy for Potter to pick that out.
100%.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind giving him, the November series and the Six Nations and just being like, if you don't grow, then you're out. but this is your opportunity. You and Lawrence figure something out. You know you have Slade. Slade will always be sort of ready to come in. Daly will be ready to come in. Farrell will be ready to come in. But try and see with these two how far you can get so that if, let's say, next year after the Six Nations, you're not satisfied, you can then bring in maybe one of the older players, or Jomo might be a bit more ready, or Atkinson, or whatever the case may be. So I think, England, we'll see what England does for the Fiji game. I think they'll probably experiment a bit, but I would sort of go Dingwall Lawrence. And I think another player I'd like to see is Chandler Cunningham himself in this game. Obviously hasn't had a chance to play much. Obviously people like Pepper and Pollock have come through. Wouldn't mind seeing him at 6 in this game for him to get a hit out.
I think he plays. Borthwick's a massive fan. Like it
Yeah.
was very clear last year when Borthwick picked him at 4, which was such a weird position, and it worked out well. He had a flipping good game there. So I think Chandler Cunningham definitely plays. I like your shot at midfield in the midfield, and I think Freeman move him back to the wing. Don't have a 13 cover because Freeman can go in there, and
Yeah.
then you have